Hello everyone and welcome to today's Vision Zero for Youth webinar. Today is the final part of our three-part series about the links between Walk to School Day and Vision Zero for Youth in promoting safety. Our panelists today will be sharing information and experiences about the role of youth in leading communities to create safer places for walking and biking. I'm Stephen Heine and I'll be facilitating today's webinar. So first, I'd like to introduce today's presenters. We'll first have Nancy Pullen-Sufert, who's the Director of the National Center for Safe Routes to School and the Associate Director of the Pedestrian Bicycle Information Center. She's been involved in coordination of National Walk to School Day since 2003 and helped start National Bike to School Day in 2012 and has since been involved in its coordination as well. With a background in public health, she's worked in transportation-related injury prevention for 20 years. She's led projects for the U.S. Department of Transportation, philanthropies, and state agencies, much of it focused on supporting safe walking and biking to schools through the evaluation, strategic initiative development, resource development, and working directly with communities and states. After that, we'll have Alison de Beaufort. She's from Brooklyn, New York, and is a sophomore civil engineering student at Worcester Polytechnic Institute in Massachusetts. She is the founder of the Vision Zero Youth Council, which she created in 2014 after having lost 3 friends to reckless drivers over the span of 15 months. The Vision Zero Youth Council engages middle and high school students by working with schools, local organizations, and elected officials in the fight for safer streets. We'll then have Sandy Spavone, who is the Executive Director of Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America, and has worked with youth peer education national programs for the past 16 years. Mrs. Spavone left the classroom and began her career with FCCLA in September of 1999, right after the name change from FHA to FCCLA. She began as the program assistant and grew in her role to become the director of programs when she moved from FCCLA to serve as executive director for the National Organizations for Youth Safety from 2006 to 2013. In 2013, she returned to FCCLA, serving as the executive director. The focus of her life's work has been to provide programs and opportunities for youth leadership and career development. After that, we'll have Grace Alison, who is the National Vice President of Programs for FCCLA. She is a senior at Catitas High School in Washington State. And then finally, we'll have Marcia Williams, who is the National Vice President of Community for Family for FCCLA. And she is a senior in high school in Valonia, Arkansas. So thanks so much for our panelists for joining us today. So before turning over to our presentations, take a couple minutes just to do a few housekeeping items. First, attendees, if you can hear me, would you please click the hand icon located in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. This just lets us know the webinar is working and everyone can hear. All right, looks great. So if any reason while we're going through this, if your computer freezes, just reload the website and log back into the program. It'll just rejoin the session in progress. I want you to also note that you'll not be able to speak to the webinar, though you will have the ability to submit questions and comments using the chat function, which we will get to questions following all the presentations. So please remember to ask questions at any time throughout this, and we'll try to get to them all whenever we get through all the presentations. Finally, if you do have any audio issues, you may want to try calling back in through your phone. Sometimes that connection can work a little bit better for hearing the webinar. After today, we'll be first sending you an email with a link to a certificate, so you have a proof of attendance for the webinar. And then we'll also be posting a video of this on the Walk to School website. Speaking of Walk to School Day is coming up next week on October 2nd, so we encourage you to register at walkbiketoschool.org. We, of course, encourage you to participate on October 2nd, but we celebrate throughout the entire month of October, so if you can find a day to support Walk to School Day during October, it would be great to log you in our system, so please do go and register. All right. So without further ado, we'll turn it over now to Nancy Pullen-Sufert to kick off our presentation.
Great. And thank you to Stephen, and good afternoon to all of you. And I am only going to speak just very briefly because we have some wonderful speakers with us today, and I want to be sure that you get to hear from them. But I did want to invite you to be part of something. And so this is a campaign that is led by one of our treasured partners, the FIA Foundation. They focus on road safety and environmental health, particularly when it comes to protecting children and youth. They have been great supporters of Walk to School Day in the last few years, and they helped us launch our Vision Zero for Youth initiative, and they're also supporting this webinar series. We thought today would really be particularly fitting to tell you about the This Is My Street campaign. Two reasons why. One, because when we've surveyed Walk to School organizers in the past, some tell us that the international aspect of Walk to School Day is a reason why they participate, and this is definitely a global campaign. And of course, today we're talking about youth leadership, and there are definitely ways that youth can take the lead in using this campaign. So This Is My Street is a visible call to action that can be used by anyone who wants to be part of the campaign. It includes signboards and ready-to-use social media messages. So why? What is the purpose behind it? It is specifically focused on trying to encourage and support change kind of at all levels, locally and within national and international bodies, really to commit to addressing traffic injury prevention and environmental health, and really thinking about those as adolescent health issues because they very much are. So right now there's a lot of focus on trying to encourage the UN and other global leaders to commit to holding an adolescent health summit where they can start talking about some of these issues and how they are impacting young people. How is the campaign sort of going about this? They're really trying to reach a variety of audiences, and I hope you see yourself in there, certainly in that road safety box, and probably in one or two of the other boxes as well. And really kind of three goals: one, around building support for road safety and health, especially as it impacts young people, as I've mentioned. Helping to build a strong online community for pushing for change, and connecting with decision makers who can influence our policy agendas. So if you go to mystreet.org, there is a chance to join on to read more about the sort of brief list of actions that are needed by decision makers that this campaign is calling for, and that everyone who's interested is being asked to call for, and a place to download materials. Like I said before, there are social media messages that are ready to be used, and other kinds of materials that you're welcome to use. And again, all of these are things that professionals and advocates of all ages can do and be a part of. So I really encourage you to check it out. On that note, tossing it back to you, Stephen, and thanks everybody again for being part of our webinar today.
Thanks so much, Nancy. We'll send it over to Alison de Beaufort now.
Hi guys, this is Alison. So I am the founder of the Vision Zero Youth Council. The Vision Zero Youth Council is a student-run organization that engages youth activists in middle and high school in fighting for safer streets. And we do so by working with local schools, governments, and elected officials. So as was mentioned in my bio, I got involved because in 2014, I lost 3 of my friends and classmates to traffic violence. I picture them here because it impacts me every day, even though it has now been 5 years, and it's like it has become such a big part of my life. And traffic violence impacts youth across the world at a much higher rate than any other age range. So it's definitely very important that youth are included in the conversation about making the streets safer. So I'm really happy to be here and to be able to share my experiences with you. So the Vision Zero Youth Council, as I said earlier, is a by youth for youth organization. And when I first launched the Youth Council, various local organizations worked with me to help me organize it and get students on board with what I was trying to create. But I'll explain more on that in a few slides. So as we work with local schools and organizations and elected officials, we participate in a bunch of different events, including just like local events and workshops and protests that are related to legislation and street design, general awareness and education, and among other topics. And this summer, I was able to pass the torch to 2 new young activists. So the Youth Council will continue. It may be a little different than how I was leading it, but I'm here to share the information that I was able to acquire from my experience leading the Youth Council. And I'm happy to be able to share tips for adults looking to support young activists. And I'll be sharing those along the way, and then I'll highlight them at the end. So the Youth Council was organized with an executive board with various positions to delegate the work. And my executive board is pictured on the bottom right of this slide. We had monthly meetings with hands-on activities, and the flyer, which is posted on the left side of the screen, was posted absolutely anywhere we could think of. So social media, in school hallways. We even got local stores that were frequented by youth to put them up on their walls and things like that. So we really tried to spread the word as much as we could. And so as a tip, if you want to inspire a younger group of students to get involved, I quickly realized that you have to make them feel like they're not doing something that's related to schoolwork, meaning it's not structured like a lecture. It's going to be something that's more active and fun and unique and engaging. So one of our monthly meetings was actually walking around our neighborhood and getting local stores and organizations to put up our flyers, which was a lot of fun. As for engagement of adults, we didn't particularly have many that were involved. I worked closely with the Department of Transportation from New York City, and they were always willing to give me pointers and put me in contact with other people who were always willing to help, but they weren't always present at our meetings. But we did have someone who kind of acted as an advisor, who was there to observe and help out if one of the youth council leaders asked for it. But as I'll touch on a bit more later, that was something that we had asked for adults to kind of step back, because we really wanted it to be a by youth for youth organization. So yes, these pictures are from some of our monthly meetings. Again, we had a really big emphasis on hands-on activities because we wanted the information we were giving them to be more engaging. And so I had to brainstorm a bunch to come up with the ideas for the activities myself, and they were really well received by all the students. One of the things that we did, which are pictured in 2 of these actually, was a traffic safety themed musical chairs. And so another tip that I have is, if you're looking for activity ideas, don't give yourself a headache trying to come up with something that's different. take an activity that the kids are familiar with, and it'll save you time since you won't have to explain as much of the rules, and then just switch it up a little bit to make it street safety themed. Something else that I had to learn really quickly was that it's not all flowers and unicorns. Like, everyone always had a lot of fun at our meetings, but there were also a few meetings, especially during the winter, during the colder months, where people didn't show up. And one time I ended up by myself with my brother, and another time I ended up by myself with one child and his father. And so as adults who are listening in, I think this is like a great teaching moment if you're working with youth that are trying to engage their peers. Like, sometimes people won't show up and it sucks, but you can take that moment to figure out what you can improve and why people didn't show up, and then how to move forward from there and make changes for the next time. Another thing that was kind of characteristic of the Vision Zero Youth Council was that we had Vision Zero Youth Days. It was a day-long event. We hosted it once a year, and we had guest speakers and panels and a whole bunch of activities. In New York City, high school students have a required amount of community service hours that they need to complete before graduation. So we gave community service hours to those who attended, and we had food and things like that. So it really motivated more youth to attend, and it gave them something to do on a weekend. Along with the Vision Zero Youth Council and the Vision Zero Youth Day, I'd say know your audience. So our activities were mainly for high school students, but we made sure to have a few activities for younger age group as well. So like coloring and card games and matching and things like that. And I'm sure, as everyone knows, everyone, but especially middle and high school students, are pretty addicted to social media. So a lot of our campaigning and advertising was done through social media. So we had filters. I don't know if anyone is familiar with Snapchat filters, but you can make your own for an event that you are creating, and then those who are attending the event can add the filter to whatever picture they take on Snapchat during that time. We had competitions and a bunch of hashtags and things to really try to get those who were attending involved through social media as well. And moving past the Vision Zero Youth Day, I also really wanted to highlight some of the Vision Zero Youth Council's accomplishments. And the point I want to make by highlighting these things is that outside opportunities are just as important, because it not only helps spread the word, but it also gives the younger generation a voice and more credibility and validation. I know for me, having these outside opportunities that I got through the Vision Zero Youth Council, but that weren't particularly linked to it, really helped me realize that what I was doing was important and making a difference. So on the top left, there's a picture at an event I did with the FIA Foundation and UNICEF. That was the Child Declaration for Road Safety, and I think it was one of the first big events that I did. And I still remember the day like it was yesterday. On the top right, there's a picture from a rally that we did when we were working on getting a speed camera bill passed that we were finally able to get, thank goodness. But I was able to help lead that rally and organize it. And as you can see by the picture, there was a great turnout. We got a lot of attention. And as I said, we did end up finally getting that the speeding camera bill passed. On the bottom left, there's a picture from a competition that I did my sophomore year of high school, during which I was able to create a smartwatch app that detects speeding cars moving towards the user at unsafe speeds and then sends out an alert, whether that is in the form of a vibration or a beeping. And it was really one of the ways that I was able to use technology to impact my Vision Zero work and I was able to help spread the word about traffic safety through that. And then finally, on the bottom right, there's a picture from a news crew that came to our Visions Your Youth Day, and they helped us share our stories and tell the general public why the youth were involved and why we were there, why the youth were willing to show up on a random Saturday instead of just hanging out with their friends, how it affects us, and things like that. Something I didn't include on this slide is that over the summer I traveled to Argentina for school, and as a part of my requirement, I had to do a research project, which I chose to do on traffic safety. And while I was there, I reached out to local organizations and the local government, and they were also like more than happy to help me gather the information that I needed. And I thought that was just so great to have that support from adults and already established organizations. So as a recap, this is all the advice I could give to adults on how you could best support young activists. The first one being be present, but keep it student-led. Students will inspire each other with their own passions, and the moment they see one of their peers is active about a certain issue, they'll most likely be willing to learn more about it and get involved themselves. Kids like to be the boss, so once an adult becomes in charge or looks like they are in charge, it may turn students away because they think of it more as a class than something they can make decisions for and help lead. My second piece of advice is, as adults, be there to give advice as well. Help out, but like don't try to overshadow the ideas of the students. Even if you feel like they're not doing something completely right, try to guide them towards the right path by giving them full explanations, but also let them learn for themselves and work through it. Additionally, be ready and willing to connect the youth activists with other adults and organizations. So as I mentioned, my experience in Argentina and the Child Declaration for Youth for Road Safety event, and the TV opportunities and things like that. This will help students grow their skill sets, for example, like communication, and realize that they're not alone in the fight and that they have supports not only in their community but across the country and across the world. And giving them these outside opportunities from personal experience, I can confirm that it's super cool to be able to say, for example, that you attended a press conference with the governor, which is pictured on the left. That was when they passed the speed camera bill, or appeared on morning TV to talk about the project, which I included a screenshot on the right. And so all of my friends were really excited to have some relation to a cool event, and that even spread the word about the topic, about traffic safety, and more of my friends got involved after these things because they saw how impactful it was on the community and the issue itself. So I hope that this was informational and that I was able to give some tips that will hopefully be useful. I wanted to include some shameless plugs. Feel free to reach out if anyone has any more questions or wants more advice. And that is it. Thank you so much.
Although I'll tell you get messed up out of it. So.
Great, thank you so much, Alison. And now we're going to be going over to Sandy Spavone. Just a reminder to everybody participating, feel free to send questions anytime you get. So if you have any questions while you're going along, please do submit them. Okay, switching over to Sandy now.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much, and thank you, Alison. That's fantastic, and I always love hearing about the work that you've done there and continue to do. So it's exciting to know that you're continuing to turn that over to other youth leaders. I'm just going to share a little bit about FCCLA for those of you who aren't familiar with our organization, and then I'm going to turn it over to two of our dynamic youth leaders who are both high school seniors and have been elected by their peers to serve as National Executive Council members. So this is just a little bit about FCCLA for those of you who may not be familiar, so that hopefully you can learn a little bit more. That's me. That's what I look like. That's the voice talking to you right now. And FCCLA is a career and technical student organization. We're based in middle schools and high schools all across the country. And something about FCCLA that's a little bit unique is that we're actually based inside the classroom. So the work that we do, we call it intracurricular. So it is part of the school day. All the work that we do, we crosswalk to the national standards for the family and consumer sciences teachers, so that if a teacher is teaching about bicycle safety or pedestrian safety, and a principal asks, well, why are you using class time to go over that? They can crosswalk to a standard that's required of them to teach and justify using classroom time to take on these types of issues. So a little bit about our DNA there. We have over 175,000 members in middle school and high schools around the country, and that's composed of chapters. So we have over 5,300 chapters, and those chapters are led by a teacher who we call advisors. And some schools may have one chapter, but more than one advisor or teacher advises that chapter. So you see there's 6,700 different teachers in our community that serve FCCLA and lead chapters within their community. And one thing we wanted to point out is that we have a robust connection to the middle school, and that's continuing to grow as we see career and technical education begin at a younger age in the middle level area. So of our membership last year, we had over 33,000 members who were middle school. So we are still primarily female. You heard in my bio that we used to be FHA, Future Homemakers of America, which was all predominantly female, but our membership continues to grow with male and female, and we're excited by that and to see the interest of both getting engaged with FCCLA. Our students are very high achievers. Most of them have a GPA between 3.0 and 4.0. And so they are students that are wanting to do well and have the opportunities to concentrate and grow through STEM and different activities. And then basically our ethnicity breaks up with pretty much follows the U.S. Census there. So we have a nice diverse audience as well. These are just topics that when we polled our teachers and asked them what do they teach in their classroom, these were the percentages of what they concentrate on. A couple that I wanted to point out to you specifically where walk and bike to school and traffic safety fall under. You'll see many of our teachers included in their parenting and child care, whether it's child restraint or if they're running a preschool, making sure that the students in that early education preschool that our teenagers are helping them learn how to walk across the street correctly and wear their bicycle helmets. So also you'll see them do some traffic safety work in their community service efforts, as well as some even tied into health and wellness as far as giving up the car and biking and walking and including those activities. Why do people join FCCLA? We asked them that. One of the top things is community service, and our Vice President of Community Service will be on this call and share a little bit more about that. But they love to travel, they love to compete, and really at the end of the day, our main goal is to expose them to opportunities to showcase their strengths, have a safe place to fail, which I really appreciate Alison pointing out in her presentation too, that sometimes things don't go as planned and we learn from those and move on. So this is a safe place for students to do that, all while they're exploring possible career opportunities. We offer several different national programs, and these would be the curriculum resources that I referred to earlier, where we crosswalk them to the national standards so that it fits within the classroom. The one that we're highlighting today, you'll see there as FACTS, F-A-C-T-S, and it stands for Families Acting for Community Traffic Safety. It is a peer-to-peer education program. So the teachers engage the youth, give them information, and really empower them to take action on different areas among their peers to create change. So in this particular curriculum, there's a unit on their safety, so looking at them either as a driver or a passenger, a bicyclist, a pedestrian. We look at vehicle safety so that they're learning to maintain, whether it's their bike or their car, that they're taking the next steps to make sure that their mode of transportation is safe. And then we also have them study road safety and infrastructure and how that impacts their safety as users of the road, whether that's a bicyclist, pedestrian, walker, or driver or passenger. So they create projects to focus on different topic areas that are important to them and getting involved in their community. Many of the students have taken the step of advocating for specific laws to be passed in whether it's their community or within their state. And so they've been very involved in advocacy efforts and also with their parents and helping parents understand why it's important for the parents to role model good behavior as road users. So one of the things that I wanted to highlight before I turn it over to Grace is a very popular program that we run that's called Teen Road Safety Assessment. And that particular program helps the students go out and learn about infrastructure. And some people may feel that teens can't really do a high-level RSA if you've participated in those before. And so we don't look at these as engineers out there. We look at these as eyes and ears. And what's very interesting about taking the youth out and looking at infrastructure, most of the time, these are aha moments. We see the youth when they're walking out there, their faces are like, oh, we're going to go do this. But when they see what's going on with infrastructure, how road users are using the road, they come back different. And many of them are enlightened about how to be better pedestrians because they notice that either the crosswalk isn't being adhered to by the drivers. We've had students that have gone out and advocated for infrastructure changes after this. In Florida, we had one community add lights because the students had to walk to school in the dark because of the time change, and they had one of their peers had been hit by a car trying to cross the road. And in another school in California, they didn't have a school zone sign with a slower speed limit while the students were trying to cross the street. They were having to run to try and get across because the crosswalk timing wasn't set right and the cars were going at a higher speed. So really taking the students out there and having them observe. We worked with some international partners with IRAP to create a list for the students of what they could be able to look for and measure. We did a survey, and 70% of the students surveyed said they didn't feel safe in the intersections near their school. So as we look at back to school and having students walk and bike to school, this is an important piece that we all understand that infrastructure plays a key role in that and how students can have a voice in that change. So I'm going to turn this over now to Grace Alpin, who is the National Vice President of Programs for FCCLA.
Thank you, Mrs. Spavone. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Grace Alpin, the National Vice President of Programs, and I'm a senior at Kittitas High School in Washington State. This will be my 4th year at FCCLA. I'm here to share with you a few of the projects that FCCLA has been able to complete regarding traffic, walking, and biking safety. FCCLA has one national program, as Mrs. Spavone said earlier, called FAST, Families Acting for Community Traffic Safety. I personally participated in FACT when I was a freshman in high school for my project called Unless You're 13, the Backseat is Your Seat. I peer-educated students about the importance of sitting in the back seat of the car until the age of 13. I spoke at an all-school assembly and was assisted by local law enforcement in sharing how the bodies are so underdeveloped that they cannot sustain the impact that would happen in the front seat of a car crash. I also had students pledge to sit in the back seat, as well as educate the parents of the students during a pre- and post-survey. Another FACTS project the Santana Junior Senior High School in Kansas completed was called Safety First. Judith Stuckey saw a need in her school for the students to become more aware of traffic safety. There were many goals of this project, but the main ones were to create a crosswalk pedestrian safety for the elementary students and to have a bicycle safety program for the elementary students to complete. They worked in the kindergarten classroom with their school safety officer to teach young students about the importance of crosswalk safety. They conducted a traffic safety poster making contest for the students to participate in. They also had a local state trooper come and speak to the school about the importance of traffic, walking, and biking safety. They received many comments about their project and the components that it contained. They also received a lot of positive feedback from the youth parents, stating that they were more aware when sending their students on crosswalks and bicycles to school. This project was also featured in many local newspapers, websites, and social media outlets. Another school in Virginia at Stonewall Jackson High School completed a project called Bicycle Safety for Preschool. After hearing local community members addressing their concerns with the lack of bicycle safety, this FCCLA chapter decided that they wanted to make a big impact. They decided that educating students as young as preschool would make the most impact. The students worked with their advisors to develop a plan. They wanted to have all preschools be involved with their lessons in order to teach youth about the importance of bicycle safety. They collaborated with their early childhood education class to plan lessons and gather resources. They then visited the preschools and asked how many students rode bikes. They also read the Berenstain Bears bike safety book and did an interactive YouTube video about bike safety. At this time, they also taught lessons and then sent the students through a bicycle safety obstacle course in their gymnasium. They evaluated the students on different safety guidelines. At the end of their event, they held an award ceremony that certified each student, and then they gave them a Rice Krispie treat that was shaped as a stop sign. That night, they also sent home informational flyers with each of the students to educate their parents. Today, I was able to share with you a few of the many traffic safety projects that FCCLA has the opportunity to complete each year. Thank you for letting me share a little bit about our story and giving me a minute of your time.
And next we have Marcia Williams, who serves as the National Vice President of Community Service for FCCLA.
Well, thank you, Ms. Spavone, and thank you, Grace. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marcia Williams, and as Ms. Spavone said, I'm the Vice President of Community Service for the Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America. I hope everyone is having a great Tuesday. I'm a senior at Bologna High School in Arkansas, and this will actually be my 6th year at FCCLA. And I must say, as the Vice President of Community Service, it really warms my heart to see my peers and all of those of you who are present today taking initiative and advocating for safety in your communities. My chapter has been involved in many traffic safety projects, and we are actually looking forward to this year completing the FCCLA National Program FACTS, which stands for Families Acting for Community Traffic Safety. Throwing it back to last year, I met with a concerned aide in the special education department. We discussed her disturbance, and we tried to come up with a solution, my team and I did. Miss Hill, who was the concerned aide, she was a seeing eye aide for a young man who is partially blind and had actually been diagnosed with autism. She told me that although most of the time he has her to guide him through school traffic, walking from campus to campus, sometimes, unfortunately, that is not the case. And the student had been having difficulties aligning and maintaining a straight line of travel on the crosswalks connecting our campuses. Ms. Hill expressed her concern for the lack of rumble strips in our high school parking lot, which is crucial to the lives of those who have visual disabilities. So here on the screen, my team and I created a visual outline of what the newly updated parking lot would look like with rumble strips before every line of traffic. So where you see the yellow markings, that resembles where we are looking to place the rumble strips. This project is still being processed as it is very costly, and it does require a lot of labor. but we are still working with the school administration, county commission, as well as the Department of Transportation. And we are hoping that this is something that the school will place as a top priority and work to complete this necessary safety measure, as I said earlier, because it is something that could be crucial to the lives of those who do have visual disabilities. Today, I also want to share with you some traffic safety efforts of others around the country. And on this, Miss Sandy, can you go back to the past slide? I'm sorry about that. Thank you. As seen on here as well, I conducted a poll directed towards FCCLA students around the nation and asked this question: have you or your chapter been involved in traffic safety efforts such as FACTS, Safe Rides, Safe Lives, etc.? And to my surprise, out of 57 students, 30 of them, which is 53%, said that their chapter is or was previously involved in traffic safety efforts. I reached out to some of those members and asked them to share their story. So the next slide, please. Thank you so much. Brooklyn High School in Arkansas recently participated in the national program FACTS. And at their regional fair, their chapter created a public awareness booth to present and then had students and adults sign a pledge for safe driving. At their booth, they displayed poster boards as seen on the screen that informed the public on the dangers of distracted driving and, more importantly to our webinar discussion today, not stopping for pedestrians either walking or biking. This display reached many people in the state and made a big impact on those who participated. The next project takes place at a middle school in Liberal, Kansas, and the concern of Seymour Rogers Middle School is that over the years, the number of child deaths have increased due to the lack of knowledge about crosswalks. They believe that there is not enough education in school about the proper way to use a crosswalk, and that has led to the increased deaths. There were 5,376 pedestrians that were killed in the United States in the year of 2015, and about 10% of these pedestrians were children. In order to educate students in their schools about the significance of the crosswalks, members at Seymour Rogers showed or taught students who are in an after-school program how to cross the street properly through the use of posters and flyers, booklets, and, as seen on the screen, physical demonstration. They then spent days observing the students to ensure that they were using the crosswalk and crossing the street properly. They followed up by having students complete a survey to see what they learned about crossing the street through the brochures and the booklets and the physical demonstration. And they also sent out a survey to gain feedback as well on the whole project. These are only a few of the numerous projects that I had the pleasure to hear about, and I'm so happy that I was able to share the hard work of our organization with you today. I'm also happy to share that this webinar inspired me to write an article about the importance of traffic safety and biking and walking to school safety in our upcoming state officer update, which goes out to all of the state officers across the nation that will be sent out this next month. Thank you all for your time, and with that, I will hand it back over to Ms. Spavone.
Thank you very much for all that you've done and for sharing the work there from the youth across the country. For those of you who want to find an FCCLA chapter near you, you can contact us and we can show you where the nearest FCCLA chapter is. If you are from FCCLA and you're on the call and you'd like to be connected to community leaders in your neighborhood as well, we'd love to that outreach as well. So we'd like to partner. One thing we wanted to share with you is that we have a national conference every July. This last year we were in Anaheim with over 8,700 attendees. This year, July 5 through 9, will be in Washington, D.C. with over 8,000 attendees celebrating our 75th anniversary. And the youth will be illustrating different projects and celebrating in competitions. So we always need adult volunteers, projects being presented. So if you're looking to come and work with youth, this is a great place for you to come join us and participate. This is our contact information. You can reach out to all three of us if you have questions or want more information about our work. And thank you again for your leadership to keep us all safer on the roads.
Hey, thank you all so much. It's really wonderful to see everybody's great experience here, and all the hard work you've been putting in around the country to make places safer. So now we're going into time to answer a few questions. So we got about 10 or 15 minutes here. Please feel free to ask questions still as we go along. We'll keep that open so we can add your questions as we go. I guess to start off, so this is something Alison spoke to, but I'm wondering if our friends from FCCLA could answer this as well about some of the best advice or support they've received from adults in trying to do some of their work in safety.
Could you repeat that question one more time?
Sure. It's really for Grace or Marcia. So Alison talked a little bit about how adults really help to support them and allow them to lead really on their own. I'm just wondering if Marcia or Grace have any advice there for how people, or kind of the best advice they've received from adults or the best support they receive, what really helps them to thrive.
I know that Go ahead, Marcia.
No, you go ahead and continue, Grace. I'm so sorry.
I know that I've received a lot of support from my local, state, and national advisor, and that support's been really crucial, especially when maintaining different projects. But I feel that the best way for my projects to be successful is through me speaking mostly to the students. I feel when my advisor kind of takes the lead when we talk to an overall group of students, they hold back a little bit more than they would if I were speaking to them.
Absolutely. And as we went over earlier, FCCLA is a student-led organization, but that really, we do have wonderful advisors and people on staff at nationals, such as Ms. Spavone, who really work towards pushing us and making sure that what we are working on is going smoothly and that we are where we're supposed to be. So although it is a student-led organization, they still allow us to do everything the way that we would like to, and we are the ones reaching out to the kids and talking to them. But this is also, they have been a very crucial part of the work that we have gotten done, especially regarding traffic safety. Absolutely.
Great, thank you. I guess on the sort of flip side of that, have there been sort of, despite their best intentions, moments where adults have tried to support and things have just gone wrong, or you might say, they need to step aside and let us lead? If Alison can answer this as well.
Oh, sorry.
No worries. Go ahead.
Oh, all right. So for me, when I first started the youth council, the adults I was working with right from the beginning, I had made it quite clear that I had wanted it to be completely like student-led, and for it to be for students. I had tried to get involved with other traffic safety, like local traffic safety organizations, before starting the youth council, and I had trouble getting involved because I felt very overlooked. And so starting the youth council kind of came with like right away with the idea that this was going to be completely student run, and we did have and we do have like, I guess you could call them advisors from like the Department of Transportation, and just people who are there to help out in case something happens. But other than that, our entire executive board is all students. things like that. So I've managed to avoid any issues of miscommunication and things like that. So my experience with that hasn't been, it's been okay so far.
Going off of what Allison had to say, as youth, there will always be doubts to what we can or we cannot accomplish. But I think I can speak for myself and Grace both here when we say that the advisors and the national staff at FCCLA, they do a really great job of making sure that we know that it is student-led. And sometimes they push us to realize that, even though sometimes we ask for help. It is just a learning and growing experience, and it really is with any student-led organization or community service project that you have that is student-led. There are some challenges, but like Allison said, I have not run into any miscommunication, big miscommunications that have negatively impacted anything. So thank you.
I feel the same way. When joining FCCLA, I have immediately felt support, and as going through the process, and I feel like Marcia probably feels the same way, national staff and headquarters have been so great to us, along with local and state chapters. I've felt support in everything I've done, and anything that they do is an effort to make me better.
Great. Well, that sounds, you've all been really fortunate to have people support you in such great ways. So it's a testament to all the good work you've been doing, I'm sure. Let's see. So here's one that probably could be open to any of y'all there is what do you think are the best ways to use social media, being the social media experts that you may be? Or maybe what are some ways people misuse social media, I guess, on the other side?
So for me, as I touched upon a little bit during my slides, we used the Vision Zero Youth Council used social media not only as a form of like advertising and letting people know about the events that we were having, but also to help engage our participants. So as I mentioned earlier as well, so like filters and hashtags and things like that. And I saw also on I forget if it was Marcia's or Grace's slides, but on Instagram you can do Instagram polls to kind of get a feel of what your audience is thinking or how they're feeling about an issue or whatever question you'd like to get data about. And I've used that quite a bit as well for traffic safety and for other projects I've been involved with as well. And it kind of gives you a sense of like your general youth community, how they feel. And I definitely think that those are good ways to use social media. Like just obviously keeping it all positive, and making sure that those that are following your pages, your account, are staying active and aren't just scrolling past your posts or through your stories. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Absolutely. And I think another important aspect of it, using social media, is to ensure that voices are heard. Like Allison said with the poll, it was a great way for me to have everything already laid out for me, but still being ensured that their voices are being heard. And also we have plenty of social media platforms on Snapchat, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, where we actually share and highlight stories of chapters and state associations that have been involved on every level. And most recently, our theme for this year is Your Story, Our Story. So we're actually telling the stories of state officers, members, advisors on our social media accounts. And that really, not only does it update our members, it also, as Alison said, engages them, which is very important, especially to the youth nowadays, is making sure that they are staying engaged as well as being informed.
All right, great. Thanks for those certainly helpful tips. Now, when thinking about teenagers, high school kids, obviously driving is a big milestone, being able to drive for the first time. Knowing that, though, how do you get your peers to actually care about walking and biking and safety for people walking and biking when sort of the mindset is moved toward wanting to drive?
I personally live in a very rural community, and so we have very many students that drive or ride with parents. But for the few that we do have, we try to make it very known to the drivers that they're important and you need to be careful around them. Our town is very small, so there are a few roads and stuff, but it's very important for our students to know of those things and know that we have large trucks and you may not always see something and to be extra cautious. So we do have, like during health safety fairs and that kind of stuff, we do have little booths containing to those. And I feel like that's a great way for us to get the word out at my school.
Any other experiences trying to get your peers to engage in this kind of topic matter? I know, Alison, you did some outreach there in New York City. Just what helped to get people to join the youth council with you?
So, in terms of getting people to join, when I started the youth council, it was pretty quickly after the third of my friends had been killed by a reckless driver. So there was that a kind of like energy in the community, especially among my friends and my peers, about just having it be such like it's just so ridiculous that in such a short span of time, 3 of our peers had been killed in traffic, and it really highlighted the issue. And when I first started out, I was able to harness that energy where people were just like frustrated and really angry and confused. And at that point, everyone was just like ready to hit the ground running, to do whatever we could in order to create change. And in New York City, it's a little different, I think, because it's very, very dense and not that many people drive. A lot of people use the subway and other modes of public transportation. So our efforts were from the start more catered towards biking and pedestrians, just because not many of my friends got their driver's licenses until after graduation, and even now, I'm now a sophomore in college, and a lot of my friends from home still don't have their driver's licenses. But just from the beginning, like being able to harness that energy really helped the youth council snowball and grow. So it kind of got difficult towards the middle, up till now, to continue with that energy. But it's such a big issue. I think there is always going to be that energy, and even if there hasn't been a recent tragedy, which is a good thing, that's definitely not something that you want. It is something that impacts a large majority of people, and it is still something that it is still like an energy that you can use to get people involved. Yeah.
Kind of touching on what Grace and Allison had to say, I live in a rural community, but I feel like a good way to get people involved in traffic safety in general is to share the stories of those who have been impacted, such as Allison, and the devastating effects of losing 3 of her close friends and her classmates. And I think something important is to share those stories and make sure that their faces are seen and their names are heard, to emotionally engage people our age, to understand that there are more dangers than, just distracted driving. Like we have, like what I touched on earlier with the concerned aide who was fearful of her student's life crossing back and forth the campuses because he couldn't maintain a straight line for the crosswalk. So I think the most important part is just making sure that they're emotionally engaged and that the stories are being shared and heard.
Certainly, that's very true. Thank you. Yeah, making sure that everybody's voices are heard is certainly very important, and one way to make sure that everyone can be engaged. So, well, thank you very much. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for today. I'm sorry if we couldn't get to all your questions, but I want to give one final thanks to all of our panelists for their presentations and for being open to answering all your questions in the discussion. Thank you so much. As a reminder, you can see up here, please visit our websites. Again, walkbiketoschool.org is where you can register for Walk to School Day starting next week. So thank you so much and have a good evening.